Hey guys, what's up? It is time to film my May wrap up, and I had a really good month. Okay, so this was the first month I did my TBR game. If you didn't watch that, feel free to go back and see it. I'll be posting right after this my June TBR game episode. That is the most successful. I don't know if it was necessarily the number of books I put on there, but I read all 6 that I put on my TBR this month, and that is a huge win for me. I've never really even successfully read like probably more than 3 off of my TBR in any given month, but I am super competitive, so I think that really helped. But I had a really great reading month. I think I only had a couple misses, but I had a lot of really good reads. So let's go ahead and get into them. I picked up Daisy Haites The Great Undoing, and this is the most recent release in the Magnolia Parks universe by Jessa Hastings. I think I love the Daisy Haites books more than I like the Magnolia Parks books in this universe. If you didn't know, so basically books 1 and 2, Magnolia Parks and then Daisy Haites, they're set at the same time, but Magnolia Parks is told from Magnolia's perspective and a couple other characters, and then Daisy Haites is told at the exact same time by Daisy's perspective and a couple other characters. And I know you're probably thinking, oh, that sounds like that could be really redundant. It's not. There's very little overlap in what actually happens because Daisy's family is a part of this really big crime syndicate in London, and Magnolia is just this like London socialite, and one of her friends dates Daisy and is like is Daisy's love interest, and that's kind of where the overlap happens. But I loved this. 5 stars. This is a 5-star series for me. I cannot wait for the next one. Absolutely cannot recommend these books enough. I love them. They are definitely character driven, less plot driven. So if you're looking for something that's got like crazy intense plot, that's not gonna happen. These also all have horrible endings. Each ending of these books makes me gut-wrenchingly sad. It seems like they're just progressively getting more and more sad. This one was probably the worst on all fronts. If you've read this, you know. But 5 stars, loved this, highly recommend. I read finally The Summer of Broken Rules. This is the perfect summer read. I mean, I know you're probably thinking, oh, it has summer in the title, that's why she's saying that. I would assume it is. But really it had all the things I look for in a summery book. It's set during the summer, it's on a vacation, it's set at Martha's Vineyard, which was super fun. And it's just young, fluffy romance. There's no spice in this. It is just a good time. I did not know that the main character is experiencing / going through like grief. Her sister has passed away, and this is their first time going back to the place that they always vacationed now since she's passed away. And so she's kind of working through that. So it did have some more depth to it than I was expecting. This, I think, is probably 4.5 stars for me. I loved it. It was just missing just a little something to put it over the edge to a 5-star read. It was great. It follows this family, mostly this girl, during the week of one of her cousin's weddings, and they have this big family game that they always play, which is Assassin with water guns, and all I could think of was that episode of Gossip Girl the whole time. And I actually had a birthday party because of that episode of Gossip Girl where we ran around and played Assassin, and I think I was like the 3rd to last person out, and that devastated me because I am incredibly competitive, so that was tough. But absolutely recommend this, especially if you're looking for something good for like the pool, beach. This would be, I'd say pick this up if you haven't. And the author's releasing, I don't know if it's a sequel or just another one set in the same universe, but another book comes out I think this month in June. I read The Playlist by Morgan Elizabeth. I will admit that I read this because I heard it had Taylor Swift vibes. And that's not necessarily a valid reason to read a book, but it was why I read the book. And I'd give it 3 stars, maybe 3.5, but I'm gonna say 3 because this is best friend's brother, I believe, romance. And they've kind of had crushes on each other their whole life, but they've never acted on it, except one time he tried to act on it and she was like, no, this is all not spoilery, just so you know. And basically he whisks her away on a trip and he's like, just pretend we're together. And they're, I mean, like hooking up and all this stuff, and like towards the end they've been together for like a week now, and she's like, it's just pretend. He's just pretending. That really got me. That sucker knocked it down. It made me partially want to give it 2 stars, if we're being completely honest. If it hadn't had that, I think I would have liked it a lot more. I also might have liked it more if I had read the other books ahead of it, but I don't know. People said that this one wasn't their favorite. I did enjoy the Taylor Swift references. That was a good time. I won't lie, that was a good time. I also read The House of Beating Wings. I listened to it half on audio and then I read the other half on my Kindle. I am very curious to see where this goes. I'm absolutely gonna read the second one. What happens with this one is a girl has a crush on the prince. She's half fae. He's full fae, prince, whole 9 yards. And this, I don't know what the right word is here, psychic tells her if she collects and frees the 5 crows, she'll be queen. So she's like, oh heck yeah, I'm obsessed with him. I want to be queen. Great news. The crows are what almost caused the Fae's downfall in the past. They're like their ultimate rival. And you know that from the get-go. So just take that for what you will while she is out here freeing these crows. And she's like, I'm gonna marry the prince. That was my real big beef with this one. So I gave this 4 stars, maybe 3.5. I'm unsure. I've thought about it a lot since I read it. And I really liked it. I'm curious if I like the second book more and if it keeps me into it, because the concept of it is different than other books I've read. I definitely liked it. I didn't dislike it, that's for sure. The only issue was with Fallon and her prophecy or whatever. I just felt like she was maybe being a bit naive and dumb. But I didn't find her annoying. A lot of people find her annoying, and I don't feel like I felt that way. Also, I saw someone say it was a combination of like The Cruel Prince and Dance of Thieves, and I didn't feel that way either. I wish I did because I love both of those. And I did like this, but I don't know if it was necessarily a combo of those. Then I read Part of Your World. This is my new favorite romance book. This is my new go-to romance book recommendation. 700 stars out of 5. I loved this. I mean, like, sound the alarms, let everybody know. Pick up this book. Sorry about this telling you to. It was so good. The internet didn't lie to me. The internet didn't lie to me, and I'm thankful for that because this was so good. I read an Abby Jimenez book forever ago. I read The Friend Zone. This is gonna make me want to finish that little series of things because I also want to read Yours Truly. I ran out and bought it as soon as I finished this because I'm obsessed. It was so good. I don't even know how to describe this other than you just need to read it. This is a big city doctor with family legacy and a small town guy who's sort of running an inn and barely holding it together in his mind. I loved this. I loved everything about this. Please read this. Please read this summer. If you need a summer book, I don't know, there was a lot of emotion going on. It was great. It was just so, Abby Jimenez's writing is just so impressive to me. Her and Emily Henry are like my top tier writing people, which is hysterical because I also read Happy Place this month. Look at her, she's beautiful. I mean, like, can we just take a second for how pretty both of these covers are? I love both of them. Happy Place is not my happy place, let's let that be known. I related to Harriet so much as an absolute people pleaser. Also, this book is that new Taylor Swift song, You're Losing Me. That is this book, absolutely to a T. And I love that song right now. 5 million stars for this as well. I don't even care. Both of these were just top notch. My only beef with this was that they called Harriet Harry. I didn't like that. That gave me a bleh. But I love this book. This friend group, I want to be in this friend group. I want to be in this friend group. So bad. So bad. But Harriet and Wynne, I won't lie to you, this is the miscommunication trope on a very grand scale, but my big problem with miscommunication trope typically is when it's like the cause of a third act breakup, whereas this is, the miscommunication is the cause of the breakup off the page before we've started reading the book. So I hated it, I think, a little less. Plus the writing was so good. It didn't feel like Emily Henry was using miscommunication as like a crutch. It worked with the story, in my opinion. I loved this. I can't say I've yet to read an Emily Henry that I don't love, because I don't love people who meet on vacation. But beach read, book lovers, Happy Place, these books are crack. I love them. I would love to erase it from my brain and read it again for the first time. I would love to do that. This also made me want to go to Maine, I think is where it's set. I would love to. Love to have fake dating with your ex-boyfriend in front of all your friends. You know? What a time to be alive. Ex-fiance. Sorry, my bad. Last month, I read Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carolino, and I'm probably not saying that right, and I loved it. I loved it. Thought that was an absolutely fantastic second chance romance. want to recommend it to everybody. It was so great. So I was like, oh, I'll pick up another Renee Carolino book. So I ordered Wish You Were Here, and I already got rid of it because I did not like it. And that is a first for me, to dislike a book so vehemently I immediately got rid of it. It was not for me, folks. I'll say that. It is so short. It was like 200 something pages. So much happened in, honestly, I think only like 6 months. And it was one of those ones where you're like, what the heck is going on? And then later, like way later, you find out. It also was super insta-lovey on all fronts. I didn't love, I normally don't have a problem with insta-love, but this was like icky insta-love. It was not my jam. It was so different than Before We Were Strangers. I need to look up and see if she read that, or she wrote that before We Were Strangers. Like, I'm curious which story came first in her writing and her writing development and style. But yeah, this was a 2-star read for me. I think the story almost made me cry. I actually might have cried now that I think about it, but it was too much. Maybe it would have been better if it was longer. I have many thoughts on this. I could probably ramble about this book for a long time because I am perplexed by what occurred in this story. But wouldn't recommend. If you've read it, would love to chat about it. I finally finished Billy Summers. This took me like, I read it slowly over time. This is a slower read, I think. One of my friends from book club, I didn't even know this, she read this and loved it. I wish I had known that before I started reading it, because I maybe would have read it a little faster, because Ashley has excellent taste in books, so I totally would have known I liked it. I read this because of Haley Pham's vlog about reading Stephen King for the first time. I've never read Stephen King because I too am scared of horror books, will not be stepping my toe into that element of his writing realm. But this follows a hitman who's hired to do one last job, and really, that's really all you get to know. You shouldn't know more than that, because I didn't know more than that. The back, I don't think, tells you any more than that. But his cover story for while he's scoping out to do this last kill is that he's a writer, and so he actually starts writing about his life, and so it's like his autobiography, I guess, but he's writing it fictionally. It was really good. It is definitely, I think I gave this 4.5 because it was slow at times, but I definitely wanted to keep reading it. But if it had just been fast-paced the whole time and I could have flown through it, 5 stars easily. Absolutely amazing writing by Stephen King. There was like a reference to COVID in here, which I thought was weird. I didn't like that. That kind of like pulled me out of the story. But overall, honestly, I would really recommend this. It was just kind of literary fiction, I guess. Part thriller, mystery kind of vibes. But I really enjoyed it. I definitely recommend. 4.5 stars. I picked up Legendary, which is the second book in the Caraval trilogy. I am so glad I did. In this book, you get introduced to the character that everyone's obsessed with from Once Upon a Broken Heart. And I recently bought Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I really want to read it, but I told myself I'm not letting myself read it until I finish the Caraval trilogy. If you haven't read Caraval, you absolutely should. I think it kind of gives summery fantasy, if that's even like a possibility. But it's basically just a magical, almost like a magical murder mystery party on a really grand scale. That's how I would put it. That's what it is. It is just, it feels kind of twinkly. That's how I'm gonna put it. Twinkly. I really enjoyed these books. I'm super excited. I think I'm gonna read the third one sometime in June, hopefully. This is, if you have read the first book and you haven't read this one, it totally takes a whole new turn, and it follows Tella as opposed to Scarlet, who's really the primary focus of the first book, because you're following Scarlet in the first book with her going through Caraval, and this one you're following Tella while she's playing Caraval. I really liked it. I think I gave this 4 stars? Maybe 4.5? I'd say 4. 4 feels fair. It wasn't anything crazy. I'm not like, oh my gosh, best book ever, but it was really good, and I really love Stephanie Garber's writing. It just feels really magical and beautiful. She's got a lyrical kind of writing style that I really enjoy. You're shocked. You're shocked that this one's in this video. Totally worth the hype, in my opinion. Absolutely. Absolutely. Shout out the internet, because this is so good. It was really funny to me because I was describing this book to my husband, as I was reading it. And I realized it sounded exactly like the plot of Divergent, if Divergent was just dauntless, because like there's a daunting task you have to do to get into the writer quadrant in this book. There's guys trying to kill her because she shouldn't be there, and you know, she's stronger than them in a way, just like Divergent. You know, there's the guy that you think hates her and isn't gonna help her at all, but secretly, you know, is basically helping her train, just like Divergent. So I love Divergent, and so I don't mind that it had all these similarities. I enjoyed it personally. I thought it was funny. Verged off of that pretty quickly, but it was just funny when I was describing it to my husband where I was at the book. It was just like Divergent. My camera battery is dying. 1 sec. Okay, back. This was just, it was honestly everything I wanted in the moment when I was reading it. So absolutely pick this up when you're in the mood for magical fantasy. I've seen some people criticize the romance. I knew it was coming. You know, it felt a little predictable. And I kind of wish they had hated each other longer than they did. And I just definitely, I mean, it was a really good fantasy. I have to say it. It was. I can't wait to read the second one. 5 stars, maybe 4.75, maybe if I go back and think about it. But I really, for how this made me feel, I feel like it deserves 5 stars. It was so good. And I mean, really, shout out to having a first edition. I'm so glad I bought this when I did. I almost didn't buy it. I almost was like, I don't want to buy it. I'll wait and buy it later. But I bought it, and now I'm happy because I have the fun sprayed edges. Last but not least, The Final Empire Mistborn, the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. Y'all, kick me. I've had this book on my shelf, I don't know, since 2020. I think my husband bought me this book, and I hadn't picked it up. This is my favorite fantasy of all time. This is 1,000,000 stars. Infinite stars. Infinite stars. I love it. Also, talk about a cover upgrade. I've already started packing my books, or else I would show you what the original covers look like, but very proud of them for updating these covers because they were doing it a disservice. I hope more people pick them up with these covers. This is a very floppy book as well. Like, it's a top-notch floppy paperback. I won't lie to you, the font is very small, and a lot happens in this, like, what, 700 pages? Okay, 550, my bad. Felt like a lot of pages when I was reading it. This is so good. Mistborn is just fantasy. There is no romance. Please do not go into this book expecting romance because there's not any. It is the most unique fantasy magic system I have read about, I think, ever. Their magic system is metals. I've said this probably in like 10 videos now. And so each metal can do a different thing. And most people can only control, if they can control anything, only one metal. So you can either control one or all of them. And if you can control all of them, you're a Mistborn. And the reason it looks like they fly is because certain metals you push off of and other metals you pull off of, which gives like the illusion of them like flying between buildings, which I thought is so cool. At the beginning of this, do not let the beginning discourage you, because at the beginning, I was very confused. I was like, what? What am I reading? That was me. And then it all starts making sense. And it all kind of comes together. And I loved it. I loved it. It was so great. I cannot wait to read the second one. It'll, again, probably take me 2 months to get through. I will hopefully read it in June, but I'm doubtful I can get through it in the whole month and read other books it's just a lot of pages. I mean, it is a tiny freaking font. Like, look at that. Do I have like a book with comparable font? Let's try. Look at the font. If when I watch this back you can't tell, I'm going to laugh so hard at myself. But I mean, truly, this is, oh, it's so hard to say if this will be like my favorite book of the year. I have such a hard time with series because I feel like as a series, it would be my favorite. I can't really relegate a series just to like one book in the series, if that makes sense. In my opinion, it's hard for me to separate them all once it's all said and done. Because like Throne of Glass overall to me is like a 4.5 star series, but there are certain books in there that do not help it be an almost 5-star series to me. Regardless, unless this takes a very crazy turn, I can't imagine not liking these. I've even got my dad reading these now, which is really fun because we've been talking about it. I'm hoping to get my husband to read them because he bought it for me, and I think he was really excited that I finally read it. But now I want him to read it so that we can talk about it. But yeah, million stars. Please pick this up if you read fantasy. If you don't read fantasy, I wouldn't necessarily let this be your intro to fantasy. I would maybe read some other fantasy first, because it definitely was like, whoa, at the beginning. And I read a lot of fantasy. Mind you, I've mostly been reading fantasy romance lately, but still, this was great. So that is it for everything that I read in May. It was a lot. It was 11 books, and I enjoyed the majority of them, which I think is a huge win. Let me know if you've read any of those. Let me know if you've got any recommendations for me. I'm feeling the reading vibes this month. I'm hoping I can read a bunch in June. I would love to read another 10. Don't know if that'll happen because of some stuff I'll talk about probably in my wrap up for the end of June. I am just stoked. I'm having a good time reading. That's what it's supposed to be about, you know? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Head over to my TBR game video after this one and let me know what you guys think. Thanks!